G'day, wherever you are in the world of the internet. Welcome to another edition of Mastering Music, Mastering Life. Tony, Jack the Bear Man's in the house for another episode. And this week, with me, one of my dearest friends, great DJ extraordinaire, Mr. Phil Kane. G'day, mate.
Hey, how you going?
Yeah, good, buddy. Oh, finally, good to get this podcast underway.
Yeah, it's been a few false starts, but we finally made it.
Yeah, we are indeed. Did you know that actually to date you still have the two top most popular podcasts in terms of audience?
That's pretty funny.
It is, isn't it? But not surprising. But not for a bloke who has nothing to say, you've done all right for yourself.
Absolutely nothing, mate.
And to say, so mate, I think this is a podcast that, in a way, I wish I didn't really have to do, given the light of the circumstances. So, for those who don't know, Phil's currently battling some illness, and the reason I wanted to get this podcast on, mate, was obviously it's always good to chat with you. But with all the things that have been going on, I wanted you to have the opportunity to be able to tell people in your own words what's been going on over the last few months, as well as talking about this upcoming fundraiser that's happening on the 30th of March at La-di-Da. Mm-hmm. And just about, just where you're at and what your experiences have been, because nothing better than getting it straight from the horse's mouth, mate. I mean, you wrote a very nice piece in Facebook, but, as good as that is, nothing like people actually seeing and hearing it from your own mouth. So how are you at the moment, buddy? How are you feeling right now?
Well, I think people kind of, firstly, kind of get this idea that they're going to see me and I'm in pieces and I'm a shell of myself, which isn't really the case. And, I'm pretty happy that I'm not in that sort of condition. I'm not saying that I'm never going to be. I hope I'm not going to be. But right at the moment, I feel, there's a couple of niggly things, obviously, that do annoy me. But apart from those things, I feel really well. Like I'm resting a lot. I'm eating really well. So I feel generally pretty good. I've got a couple of surgeries to attend to over the next week or so, which, by the time I recover from them, then all those sort of niggly things that are annoying me will disappear. And then it will just be treatments and things like that. So, I don't know how I'm going to deal with the treatments. But right at this minute and for the next month or so, I think I'm going to be pretty good. And I just hope I can maintain this kind of level of health that I am at the moment, that I've got at the moment.
Beautiful. So you want to just take us through what happened? How did this all begin? And,
look, it's a long story and, I don't really want to bore people. Lots of people get sick. It's not just me, it's just my story, and it's no different or no greater or no better than anybody else's. There are a lot of stories out there that are, really sad. And, I think I'm quite a lucky person when you consider what's around you and what, how sick you can be or how life can turn against you. I'm actually a pretty lucky person. So, look,
hang on, Phil, sorry to pay. I take on what you're saying, but this is your story and we want to hear your story because
but
a lot of people, here's the thing. I wanted to do this podcast with you because you didn't realize even yourself until recently how much reach you have. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on here that's effective that can help other people. And so,
and you know what? That the reality is, the reason I'm here is not for me. I'm said and done, really. What I have. If I can put a message out there for people to help themselves and to avoid this situation, that's what I'm here for. It's not about my poor Phil story. It's never going to be that. It never has been that. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I feel like I'm a very fortunate person. And in a lot of ways, I'm luckier than most. Just look, let's just go and look at the medical department of GoFundMe, for example. And you read some of the stories on there. And if that doesn't bring a tear to your eye, then I don't know what will. And when you look at those stories and when you look at the kind of support that people have, and then you consider my support, you start to realize that, again, I'm a very lucky person. And yes, I without really, accepting previously that maybe I have touched a lot of people, I've had to kind of accept it because it's kind of there in my face. And, you know, I don't even know the amount of messages of well wishes from mostly people I don't know. Like, I'm sure if I saw their faces, I may know who they are. I might have bumped into them 20 years ago. But again, I'm a very lucky person that I know so many people, and so many people are there to support me. And, you know, you look at these little 5-year-old kids, and you look at, you know, some of these other people online that are really, really unwell, and you start to realize that, you know, I'm in a pretty good position as far as support and network goes, and well wishes and financial support goes. I'm a really, really fortunate person. And, you know, I don't take that lightly. I'm indebted to people forever. I can't even begin to tell you, you know, how I feel about it.
Yeah, well, I'll never forget that time when I walked in to your home and just how overwhelmed you were, and, you know, just with all the support that you got, and you honestly didn't realize just how much there was out there for you. And I think
No.
a lot of us don't realize. We just go through life, and not that we think about those sort of things, but it's funny, isn't it, how it often takes a misfortune or a tragedy or you know, some sort of bad news for people to come out of the woodwork and start,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
look, I don't think it's coming out of the woodwork. I think those feelings of people have always been there. I just don't think people express them. And then there's myself, and I think it's sort of, you know, I've had to explain this to a lot of people over, you know, the course of the last few weeks, and trying to think to myself, well, why have I been that person that has never sort of accepted, you know, I have never accepted plaudits, and I find it hard to accept compliments, you know, and I really, really would, what it comes down to, I think for me, and what I've had to sort of let go of, because I know that it probably, you know, right now that's never going to affect me. But from when I was younger, I kind of realized that maybe if I did accept compliments and took them to heart, that maybe those compliments would have turned me into a different person, and maybe I would have believed my own bullshit, and by believing my own bullshit probably would have turned me into a dickhead. And I never really wanted to be a dickhead. I just wanted to be, you know, I mean, regardless of what job I do, it's never been about my job. Yeah, I'm a DJ. Yeah, I did some cool stuff. Yeah, I made some mad records. That's awesome, and I'm glad people appreciate that. But I think what you'll find, and what's come out recently more than anything, it's beyond that, and it's beyond my job, and it's beyond, it's the fact that I've been a good person, and I've always given people the time of day, and I've always wanted to be that. And by not accepting the compliments from people, it's sort of my inbuilt safety mechanism of not turning into a dickhead, and that's really what that is. So, but you know, I've had to kind of accept it in a different way now, and go, okay, well, you know, I can see it. The writing's there. I have to accept these things from people, and you know, I'm just overwhelmed by it. Like, I'm still answering people's messages. I mean, for anyone that I haven't answered their message, I just want you to realize this. I've just got a backlog, and I'm trying to get through all of them. So I'm sorry if I haven't replied to you yet.
I'm sure you will. What do you think's been the biggest lesson for you out of all this, mate? Or what's been the biggest revelation through the experience?
Yeah, I mean, look, that, you know, that there's people out there that care about you, that you have made an impact on people's lives. Like, you know, I mean, it's just very hard to fathom, you know, that you go out, you know, and you do your job like anyone else, like everyone does, goes out and does their job, and you do your job and you finish your job, and, you know, your job was, you know, it was you know, you enjoyed it, and it was a great night. And, you know, you leave that, and you wake up the next day and you go, oh, wasn't last night amazing? It was great. And then the following day or the following week, you might give it a thought, but then it's done. You don't really think about that anymore, and you don't consider it. It's off to the next job or next gig. But what you fail to realize is that through all those moments, you've made an impact, and, you know, and people have remembered a moment, or remembered that time you went and said hello to them, you know, and that's what stayed with people, and I don't think I'm inconsiderate in that way. there's just so many of those moments. I've kind of let them go, and I haven't really given them much thought. I've just tried to move forward and do the next thing. But that is the revelation. The revelation is how many people you affect and how you've affected them, and not really even realizing that that was the case, And I said to my mother, I was trying to explain to my mother, a few years ago, what exactly I did, with the obvious, well, mum, I play records, ha ha, and that's what they think. And I said to my mum, I said to her, mate, you know what I do? I said, I just go out and make people happy. I said, you have a shit life sometimes. I have a shit life. Everyone has a shit time sometimes. And sometimes you just need to go out and let it all out and just have a good time. And I'm there, and I'm the person giving those people a good time. And those people seem to remember that moment. And again, like it's something that I sort of forgotten that that's what you do. And yeah, it's been amazing. It really has. I mean, from all these people from all over the world, like, people in Mexico, people in London, people in Russia, I mean, I've been to Russia once, you know what I mean? Like China, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I really don't.
Well, you're saying it, and all right. For those people that don't know you, I've known you for 25 years, and I've always found you to be quite a humble guy. But this just watching at the moment, mate, is just taking you to the next level. You've changed a lot through this whole time, Phil. I think not that you weren't. I think you're always a beautiful person. I love you like a brother. Always have. But just to see you've just become a much more open person, and to see that side of you has been really quite amazing. And I think we've been seeing more of the real you, through all of this.
Thanks,
and
man.
no,
Look, I've always wanted to be real. I've always wanted to be open, and I to the best of my abilities, I always have tried to be that. I guess when you're faced with what I'm having to face, you can't do anything but be open about it. I mean, what are you going to do? Hold it all in? It's not going to do you any good. You've just got to get it out of your system and express how you feel. I mean, like what I was trying to convey in my letter, my open letter to people was, it's the stress of those situations, and it's stress that really, I think, in the long run, probably hurt me the most. And it's a way of getting rid of stress is talking to people and letting out what you feel and telling people about it. The more you talk, the lighter your load is. So, I think that's another thing I've taken away from it, is not to let things bother me that much. It's just to kind of like, get on with it. It is what it is. Accept it, talk about it, with your friends, with whoever, and let it loose, because it's not going to do you any good. And that's for any type of, I mean, it's not just a medical thing. It's just, I think, everything. I mean, stress will, to an extreme, will really hurt you. And I think that's what it did to me. I think for the last few months before I got really sick, I wasn't in a good place, emotionally. I was pretty depressed, and I was thinking a lot of really stupid things. And I think my body sort of came to the party and said, well, fuck you. If this is how you're going to be, well, here, have this, cop this. So, yeah, I'm not saying that in the long run I wouldn't have got sick. I'm saying that I probably expedited it, some years by being in that state of mind,
Well, I think this is a good message too, where especially for us blokes, men, we don't really put a lot of emphasis on our health, and particularly when it comes to prostate, a lot of blokes feel a little uncomfortable because they're going to have a finger put up their passage, and just that thought brings about a very uncomfortable feeling. But it's a very short-term thing, and men don't talk about it because we don't really like to.
No, I don't think the message is really out there for a lot of younger people. I mean, for example, and this is not trying to detract from the message at all, but let's have a look at, for example, the Sydney Test match. It's the pink Test match. It's a game dominated by males, and here you have them talking about breast cancer. Now, that's all good and well, and that's fine that they talk about that, because that's just as valid as anything else. But you would have to counter that, I think, with something different. more focused towards, men's health, whether it be mental, whether it be prostate, whether it be whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a perfect example of where I think the inequality lies in that respect. You do read a lot about breast cancer. There is a lot of information out there about it. Unfortunately, for prostate cancer, I guess because it's known as something that older men get, some people of my age not supposed to get what I have. There's just not really that much out there, and whatever there is out there, it's really again targeted at an older sort of demographic. It's not really, there's no real advice for anyone that's 45, 50, 40, and that doesn't say that they don't get it. So I don't think, as far as mental health goes, I think that's a little bit starting to be little bit more prevalent of late. People are starting to talk about it and address it more. I have been seeing, but for these sort of men's health issues around cancer and things like that, I don't really think there's enough going on there and enough to support people that do have it, and know how to deal with it. So it's something that really needs to get out there more. And this is, look, there's only so much impact I can have on a certain thing of the population, but all I can say to you, and again, for the guys, you really need to go and make sure you're healthy. You need to go get checked. I mean, whether it's in colonoscopies or whether it's checks for prostate. I mean, they're really the main ones that are uncomfortable and are, really something that you're kind of trying to avoid if you can. But unfortunately, it's just one of those things you really shouldn't avoid because it can lead to pretty bad things. And again, that same goes for women. I mean, women are like, the focus is on breast cancer and it's all about the breast cancer, but there's so many more. I mean, I know of ladies that have got colon cancer. I mean, you don't really hear that often, but all these things are valid for males and females. I think that there is certain priorities on different types of diseases, but there are other things that you really need to look into.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've noticed is that just I know of 4 blokes who know you and know about your situation who have all, as a result of hearing it, have gone off to get themselves checked and they're all okay.
Well,
but there you go.
This is great. That's great. And that's what you want. That's really all that you can do is just lead people down that path and go, hey, it's not, it's, and it was always me. It was like, oh, that's never going to happen to me. That's going to happen to the next person. But
Exactly.
You know what? It happens to everybody. And you need to be on top of it. You need to make sure that, you've got it in check and make sure that everything's been looked at. But again, in my case, I was in and out of the doctors for 3-4 months and they still couldn't pick it. So, the other message is if you feel there's something wrong, then there's something wrong. Just don't let up. Don't think, because the doctor said to you, there's nothing wrong. I mean, I just kept going back and I kept going back and I kept going back and I kept going back. And I persisted with it. And, I didn't get the result I was looking for in the end, but I persisted, right?
Yeah, I remember that. You were going back over and over and there was always something, and they kept telling you, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, but you followed
you've got an infection, you've got a urinary tract infection, you might have kidney stones and we don't know, and your scans and ultrasounds and CTs and all the rest of it. And it took probably a good 3 to 4 months before they picked it. So, the other message is if you feel shit and if you feel there's something wrong and you keep getting told there's nothing wrong, I wouldn't accept that. I would just keep going back and getting looked at and making sure until you feel satisfied that I feel okay now, there is nothing wrong. Don't leave it. Carry on,
So, Mel Papa set up a GoFundMe page. How's that going at the moment, mate?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's just surpassed any expectation that I had of raising money. I mean, I thought, when we're talking about it, she's like, I'm going to, because, it was her and Danny and mainly, kind of discussing it with me, like, this is what we want to do. Michael Musker with the party and, they sort of all got together and, everyone contacted everyone and all they were doing with me was like, hey, can we do this? I'm like, do what you want. I mean, I can't tell you what to do. And initially when they told me what they were going to do, I thought, okay, look, it's going to be a great party, GoFundMe, we'll make, we'll raise $5,000-$10,000, which would be awesome, whatever it is. But it's just over $60,000 now, which is beyond any sort of idea I had of what would be raised. And this is what I'm saying. It's that, I mean, there's the monetary side of it that blows you away, but more importantly, it's the messages that accompany those donations that really leave an impact on your, you know, on your mindset, and really make an impact on, and make you realize a lot of things about yourself and about other people. So, you know, that's kind of, it's been that sort of dual-edged sword. I mean, obviously the financial side is going to help me a lot. I mean, I'm already, I've already become a patient at the National Institute of Integrated Medicine, which isn't really a traditional type of therapy, but, you know, I mean, it's you know, it's Western doctors treating you in a few different alternative kind of ways that they believe will help you. You know, it's not cheap. It's like $8,000 worth of treatments, which, you know, without those donations, there's no way I could have afforded that, or even imagined that I could afford to do that. But with the donations, it's made that possible, and I'm forever grateful. I mean, if that, you know, I was thinking about it last night. I'm looking, you know, when I beat this, I'm going to be, you know, my life would have depended on all these people that have been so nice and generous, and they've given me these positive messages. I owe my life to them. Then how do I repay that? How do I then go and repay those people? I mean, I feel it's a karma thing, and maybe I might be able to help that individual person in the future and do whatever I can to help them. But I think it's just that, you know, taking it from one hand and giving it out from another to whoever needs it. And I think that's all I can really do, you know?
Yeah. I think you made another really interesting and very poignant point, mate, that that day when the GoFundMe started, and it was starting going ballistic from day one. And it will remain with me forever, but it made a very poignant point, mate, which is, you know what, as good as all this is, I wish I wasn't in a position where I needed to have this money. You know, you would have,
and
you
still
would
it's
have
the same. I mean,
yeah,
I would give everything that I own and everything that I didn't own. I would just give it. If someone said, yeah, well, I've got it, I can do it, I can fix you, you'll take it all. I don't need money. Money's just a tool to help you with things, right? It's not really what makes you happy, you know. It just gets you from A to B, you know, and it helps in this situation. It helps me with my health, but it's not, you know, it's there. It's like, oh wow, cool. There's a load of money. Great. I mean, what good is it to me? I'm sick. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to make me better. It can try, but it doesn't make me feel any better.
yeah.
It just lessens the load for me. And I wish I could just give it all to someone that could just make me better. It would be ideal.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Hey, speaking of experiences and memories, mate, one of the things I've been enjoying, you've been posting up some of your older DJ sets and stuff. So over the last little while, have there been any particular memories that have stuck out for you in your career, or things that you've done at all that have stuck out particularly?
Well, I think it's not really. Look, if I think back, you know, I think, for example, you know, I mean, more than often than not, it's a one memory where I actually physically forced myself to remember a moment, and it was I was at Billboard, and it was a sunny party, and I turned around to grab a record out of my box, and I turned back and I looked at the crowd and I looked all around me, and it was just the whole place was just like, you know, on every beat, and they were all locked in, and I just looked at it, and I said to myself, I was like, you know what, dude, this isn't normal. Like what you're doing now, even though this happens every week for you and you think this is all standard procedure, this is actually not standard procedure. This is actually out of control shit.
Mm-hmm.
And you better remember this moment, because, you know, this is something that you should always look back to and go, fuck, do you remember that? And yeah, that's one moment, because I physically said to myself, make a mental note here. This is like bookmarked, you know. But look, I mean, the rest of it's all a big blur. Whether it's my video set at Sona Festival in Barcelona, or whether it's with all those mad kids in Juarez in Mexico, or countless dates over in America. I mean, you know, ultimately, you know, probably most of my really amazing memories are from home, because I just felt like that was my family that I was playing to, and, you know, everybody was really connected on personal level. So, you know, you could see those people smiling, and you knew them all. And for that matter, you know, some of my favorite artists were on the dance floor, and I'd be playing their records for the first time in their life. They just finished it the day before, and then I'd be remixing their record that they finished the day before with a new vocal or a new re-edit the next day. And it was just playing a game with them and myself. You know, like, oh, watch their fucking head. What's going to happen when I drop that record tonight? You know, so, you know, just all those memories. And again, studio memories with my friends, you know, with Danny, with Andy, you know, with Ivan, with Lukey, you know, listening back to records that we've made and thinking about that session and thinking about all the funny shit that happened or all the dumb shit we talked about during that session, and, you know, all the trials and tribulations of that session, you know, because everything's not doesn't flow that easy sometimes. So, but then sometimes, you know, you have those other sessions where it's a 3-hour job and it's incredible, and, you know, all there is to think about is the jubilation of those 3 hours of incredible, you know, just that vibe that you get of creativity that you don't even know where it comes from. You know, there's just two of you in a room with a pair of speakers, and something happens, and for 3 hours, and you're just looking at each other like, we fucking do it. It's just, are we doing that? Is that coming? Like, you can't believe it. You know, it's just another one of those, you know, incredible things that a lot of people don't get to experience. But I guess with your, you know, whether you're a filmmaker or a chef, or, you know, a photographer, I guess, you know, you feel the same way when you do that creation where you can't even believe, you know. And I think you're pretty aware of it, and it's a known thing these days. I've read a few articles about it in the last few months, and it's the imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
And you know that very well. And
Absolutely.
you know, there was never a name for it, but there's actually a name for it. It's called imposter syndrome, and I think I've suffered imposter syndrome for many years.
Yeah. I think, and what was amazing for me, Phil, is that when I came across that, and I wrote a big blog about it, and people were all surprised how more and more people came out of the woodwork and said, you know what, dude, you know, I feel the same. People who had a higher status than me in the world and reputation. It's very, very common, I think, amongst a lot of us creative, artistic people. And I think, as you alluded to before, you're talking about the unwillingness or the being cautious about accepting plaudits from people was an insurance policy to make sure that you kept a level head and you didn't buy into the bullshit and you didn't become bigger than you actually were. I think imposter syndrome is also a bit of a self-imposed way of doing that, you know, of trying to, you know, keep yourself flat. For me, I think it's just more a lack of self-esteem, and as self-esteem increases, that you allow that to come more in. But can I just share with you one experience, mate? You and I, we've never made music together, but we did a lot of mix CDs together over the years. But I just want to share just one particular story, if I may, with people. This was just the one moment when we were at Sing Sing and we're doing Balance 4, and it was the breaks part of the CD where it was a section where you were mixing the section from Kickflip Manual, Pocket Track, into Lukey's Midnight and Cyber.
Oh, what a mix.
Yeah, and that was fucking mix. And that was around anyway, and that was the time you just looked at me and said, dude, just watch this. And so you set now so Pocket's playing, you're sort of setting up the Luke track, you're just sort of queuing it up 2 or 3 times, and then as soon as you hit play, you said, that's it, let's go. So what do you mean let's go? What do you mean let's go? It's done, mate, it's fine. We went outside, we listened to the thing down the hallway. We went outside, you had a smoke outside of Sing Sing. We're listening to it, and this thing was locked, like quantum locked in, and it kept going and going. And I think from memory, it was 4 minutes and 17 seconds away. It was something ridiculous. It was one of the longest mixes I've ever seen you lock in. You queued it up and like you just two little cues, boom, let's go. And we were
auto mix.
And we were just pissing ourselves laughing outside, and I'm just looking at you going, and he said, no, it's all right, mate, it's all right. Just I said, should we? No, it's all right, it's fine. Just dear.
Good times.
Yeah, but that one is, I put it up. And another one was, I think for me, it's Sunny. In the early days of Sunny at the Paladin, you're talking about remixing people's records and caving people's heads in. When I think the first time Andy listened to his track Fire. You dropped Firebird. That's right. You dropped his Firebird track at Sunny, and I was there with Andy and just watching Andy's face, looking at you, and you looking at him and smiling, and it was a great moment. It was a fantastic moment, mate. It really. So you're still getting to muck around on some stuff. I mean, I saw you with Danny Benucci at his place.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously the last, since about July, there's been a lot of voices in my head, screaming all these crazy things out to me, and being scared, and there's just been my mind's just been taken up with so many thoughts, which it's kind of normal, and I guess there comes a point where you settle into your own skin, and I'm starting to settle with where I'm at. Like I've accepted that this is what it is, and there's nothing I can do by worrying about it to change it. In fact, by worrying about it, I probably make things worse. So I'm sort of at that point where I kind of get on with my life. The voices have been muted. They've screamed out. I think they've lost their voice. I don't think I can hear them anymore. I mean, there are certain moments, obviously, where you think stuff, but I would say that for the most part, those voices have disappeared, and in place of those voices is slowly starting to come back my creative spirit of wanting to make things and make things cool things and make things that I like. And I guess, I've always sort of been that person that's always tried to sort of think of the next thing or make the next thing or look for the new thing. But what I've slowly started to realize, or started wanting to do, is I don't really care anymore about a fashion or what's supposed to be cool or what's supposed to be the next thing. I'm not really interested in that. I'm just interested in making stuff that I want to make. Whether you call it breakbeat or whether you call it techno or whether you call it ambient or whether you call it whatever you want to call it, I don't care what it's called. If I feel it and I want to do it, I'm going to do it, and I am doing it, and I'm exploring. We spoke last time about ways of production and playing. I mean, I wrote a track on my iPad the other day, and it's probably 3/4 finished. And so to my surprise, I played it in my car, and it doesn't really even need a great deal of a mix. It sounds great straight off the iPad. So,
yeah.
And we've been speaking with Lukey, and I've been speaking with Danny, and those boys are dead keen. Lukey's at that point where he's like, 10 records, 10 weeks. Let's do it. Let's just do an album. So, they've put the idea into my head, and I guess over the next few months, as I'm going through different treatments, it all depending on how I feel. I'm hoping that I can feel good enough physically to be able to, sit there and make things that I like. And, hopefully, if all goes to plan, by the end of the year, have some type of album that consists of the most, uncoherent mix of music ever. Like, I don't think it's going to be this or that. It's just going to be things I like, and things that sound like they're 20 years old, and things that they sound like they're from the future, and things that sound like they're 30 years old. I mean, I really don't know what I want to make. It's just whatever happens. So, 3 months ago, I'll say to you, nah, not interested. Can't do it. My mind's not there for it. But I feel my mind's getting there for it. Like, I'm finding myself, because it's one of those things. It's not, I don't consciously go, oh, I want to go sit down. I want to sit down and make a record. It just happens. Like, you have this inner thing that drives you towards creating, right? So I can't stop that. I can't help that. It is or it isn't. And at the moment, I feel like it is, and I feel like I'm interested, and I feel like I've got something to put out there. But in saying that, also, there has been a couple of discussions with Luke, yesterday with Andy. We did have a couple of discussions of things that we've worked on. Specifically, there's a track that me and Lukey made. I mean, it sort of got me and Lukey working as Low Step together, and it's a bootleg production we did of Sade, and we've kind of worked on that record for 20 years. There's probably been about 3 variations of that mix. We've managed to rescue Variation 1 and Variation 2 were completely different variations. Variation 2 to Variation 3 were very similar. I think we've lost Variation 3 as a sequence.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're back to variation 2. So one of the first things you want to do is finish variation 2 once and for all. I mean, we've got a render of variation 3, so we can bring that up to variation 3 and then just put it out as a free download, just because we can.
Yeah.
And then I was speaking with Andy last night, and there was a couple of tracks that we worked on that were never released, and I'm not going to go into them right now. But there's one that's really, really early on that nobody really knows about, except for Matty Robottom, of course.
Yeah.
who funnily enough, as a 12-year-old, he's only 14 now.
Yeah.
As a 12-year-old, the first time I met him, he asked me about this record that never got released. That was within about a minute of meeting the kid, right? He goes, "What about this?" And I went, "What? Well, how the fuck do you know about that? I forgot about it." He goes, "What? You haven't got a copy?" I said, "No." I said, "No one's got a copy." He goes, "I've got a copy." I go, "What? How the fuck did you get a copy of that? It doesn't even exist." He goes, "Well, I've got a copy." So luckily enough, young Matty's rescued it from the fucking bowels of wherever.
He's the ultimate train spotter, that kid. He's a bloodhound.
14 years old, mate. Like, it's pretty hard to... and this was when he was 12. He dropped that shit on me. And I told Andy last night, and me and Andy just looked, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I was 12 years old." And he's like, "Have you got a copy of it?" I'm like, "Yeah, he gave me one." It's like, "Fuck, you got to give that to me." So...
For those who don't know, Matthew Robottom, he's among the most extraordinary young men I've ever met. We met him through, I think it was Mark Wahlberg.
Mike Wahlberg, yeah.
Ran into him at a party, and he had a list of all these people that he wanted to meet, all these DJs, etc. And we just loved this kid. He was having a hard time in school, basically. And so we all just got together and said, "Hey, let's make this kid's day." And we arranged to get as many of those people together, and we become friends ever since. And he's just blown everyone who he meets. He just blows away. I had him here with Marco Pitts was here and Michael Prees was here, and they're looking at, he's a 12, 13-year-old kid, and then he just drops his knowledge on him. What? Where'd you pull that one out from, son?
He's an absolute killer. Like, he's like the epitome of train spotters. Like, I've never met anyone that young that's that hard of a train spotter. And look, I bless him. Anything I can do to make him more of a train spotter, I'm going to do. So I give, I take him out shopping for stuff, and people in secondhand shops go, "Oh, you're teaching him." I'm like, "I'm not teaching him anything. He's fucking teaching me shit." And he actually is. It's not even bullshit. He teaches me stuff. Like, yeah, sure, I'll give him a few pearls of wisdom here and there, but he absolutely blows me away every time I see him. There's always something, whether it's a mastering SSID code or a manufacturing number or a barcode. I mean, catalog numbers are for pussies, mate. Catalog numbers are entry level. That's anyone knows a catalog number. It's written on the fucking side of the CD. That's easy shit. Who gives a fuck about catalog numbers? Yeah. So Matty's the one that gave me this track, and I'm not going to say too much about it. Just the fact that I spoke to Andy about it yesterday, and I said, "Are you okay for us to just drop this and just give it away to people?" And he's like, "Fuck yeah, do it." And then, actually, not that one. I need to discuss that one with him, but we'll get to that. But we did another track later on in the piece as well, that we sequenced when I was living in Greece, and that never got released. It was on one compilation album, I believe, over the years, and we was like, "Yeah, fuck it, we're not putting it out. Whatever, don't care." So that's the one I discussed with Andy, and we're going to give that away. We're going to put that up very shortly, up on whatever it is, Bandcamp or SoundCloud or whatever it may be, and we're just going to give that away just as a for all the people that have made donations and have just been so nice to me. I mean, that's one way of hopefully someone can get something out of that and enjoy that piece of music and play it on the dance floor and see a bunch of people go off with it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's going to be, so there's a couple of things we're going to be doing as giveaways, just to say thank you to people, because these, Andy and Lukey and Danny, they're like my brothers, and they're, anything they can do to help, they're always into it. So I've made the suggestion. They're like, fuck yeah, let's just do it. Let's just give the records away. They've just been sitting on our fucking hard drives for how many years, and they're not doing anything. We might just share them with people and just give them to people and let people enjoy them and say thank you. So that's going to happen. That's going to happen.
Awesome. Tell us about your Discogs, mate, and the library at the moment you got up. You put it up on Facebook the other day.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, I've been collecting music obviously for a fucking long time. And, you know, I mean, the reality is I don't even delve into, I mean, with CDs and my records, I haven't even looked into my records for, I mean, what is it? 15, 16, 17 years, I haven't touched my records apart from when I had to clean them up when they got flooded and I had to, you know, make sure they didn't, you know, get moldy and shit, and had to move them. But it's physically using them as something that I reference or something that I go and perform with. I mean, those days are long gone. I mean, you know, digital is just way easier for me. So from that, from having all these records and then initially starting to going, okay, well, I need to dump this digitally. And then I got to a point where I was like, fuck this. I'll just go find CDs that have got these tracks on them. And then I can dump those CDs and I don't have to sit there and, you know, do it in real time. And so I started going out to secondhand shopping and just buying thousands and thousands of CDs to kind of put into my music collection so I wouldn't have to rip them off my vinyl. And obviously that sort of got out of hand pretty quick as well. So I would say at the moment, there's probably about 10,000 records in here, and there's probably more than 5,000 CDs. Now, all the while I was, you know, looking for CDs and looking them up and, you know, going to like referencing things on Discogs, what I started to notice was there was things that were starting to be like in the CD world, that were starting to be really collectible, like things that were worth a lot of money. Like, you know, you could go to, and it still happens now. You can go to like, you know, the Salvos or to Vinnie's or, you know, Catchies or whatever, and you're buying a CD for $1, and you go to Discogs and, you know, they're selling the same CD selling for 60, 80, 90, 40, 150, you know, dollars. And then you're like, oh, hang on a minute. So there's stuff here that's actually worth money. So as the sort of progression of looking for stuff for me to source, to rip for myself so I wouldn't have to rip it off vinyl, I started getting to a point where, well, look, if I'm already out here and I know that stuff's worth money, maybe I should just start collecting stuff and that's worth money and selling it. And that sort of, that sort of progressed. And so, I put my Discogs stuff up online and, you know, look, I mean, it's an incredibly deep collection. There's anything from, you know, black metal to, you know, Australian punk to, you know, world music. And look, a lot of the stuff I actually bought as well to sample, you know, and I find it a lot easier to sample off a CD digitally, you know, because I can just put it into my CDJ. I can loop the section I want to play with. I can pitch it straight away with the master tempo on, and I can mix it into a production really quickly, and I can see if it works. I don't have to sit there with the, you know, I can just do all the stuff really quickly. I've got a digital in going into my audio interface. Right, that loop works, bang, record, it's done, it's time corrected. It's in pitch, it's in key, it's in time. It's just a lot easier to sample. So, I mean, a lot of stuff was purchased to sample. A lot of stuff was purchased because it was valuable. A lot of stuff was purchased because I could rip it and, you know, have it in my collection from stuff that I had on vinyl and then other stuff that I didn't have on vinyl. But it's gotten to a point where it's just absolutely out of hand. And, you know, I mean, the stuff that I wanted to rip, I've ripped. And it's just taking so much room up. So just my Discogs electronic_music is the username. Pretty straightforward. And there's a load of stuff. There's probably about just over 2,500 titles up there at the moment. Vinyl, there's probably about 150 records there. Mm-hmm. The rest is all CDs. But over the next 6 months to a year, there's probably going to be another 2,500 CDs up there. There's probably going to be another 5,000 to 7,000 records, I would imagine. So hopefully they'll find a better home, you know?
Really good, mate. Well, buddy, this has been a really good chat. And I really appreciate
man. Thanks for having me.
No, man, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your insights and everything that you shared with us today as well. So we got this event on at the 30th of March at Lardy Darts, Saturday, the 30th. And hopefully You got an upcoming surgery though about a week beforehand, so hopefully you'll be
Yeah,
okay.
I've got a surgery next Wednesday, the 20th, and I'm scheduled to be in for 3 to 4 days. So I'm hoping that doesn't stretch out to 4 to 8 or 10 days, which, it's happened to me in the past. So I'm not holding my breath. And if all goes to plan and I'm out in 3 or 4 days, I'll have a week at home to recover. And if all goes to plan and I am feeling good, I'm going to go there. I mean, there's nothing more in the world than I want is to be able to front there.
Sure.
And even if it means just sitting in a corner for 4 or 5 or 6 hours, if that's all I can do, that's all I can do. I really need to be there. But yeah, it all depends on how I'm feeling at that moment. So I can't make any promises at this stage, but there's nothing more that I would want than to just be there on the day, of course.
Well, I think a lot of people will be feeling the same way, buddy. And I know ticket sales have been very strong for it. It's probably going to sell out, I reckon, mate, the way things are going. So
I think so. I think it's, the response for that's just been incredible as well. But what about your event? You've got something coming up this weekend.
Yeah, well, look, I'm just launching myself as a keynote speaker, music industry mentor, Phil, and one of the things
that's this weekend, is it?
That's this Saturday at the Cave in Abbotsford.
Right.
And one of the things
I'll be there for sure, man.
Well, thanks, buddy. Well, one of the things I will be doing on the night is I'll be auctioning off 2 5-track EP packages for people. We'll do 2 silent auctions so people can, and all the money will go towards your thing. And Danny Benici and I are also we're auctioning off. He's doing some mixing from Liquid Mixers, his studio, and I'll be just matching his as far as the tracks are concerned. But that should be a good night. And as I said, hopefully we'll raise a little bit of extra money to put in the coffers for you, mate. To help
Lovely, man. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
No, that's a pleasure, but it's the very least I can do as your friend. But, the other thing that, people don't really understand is I know it's great. We got some good fortune going your way, but, even with things like private health cover, when you told me like, people with private health cover, there's still all this out of pocket, and these drugs that you need and all this sort of stuff. It's incredible how it all adds up. So, everything comes along will help, as well as taking the financial stress off you, so you can have some quality of life and hopefully get better. That's the aim of the game, buddy. That's what we want. We want you around for a long time, buddy.
All right, buddy.
Anyway, okay. Love you, mate. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you soon. And keep having a good fight, buddy. All right.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
All right, champ. And there you go, Mr. Phil K, one of my best friends, my brother. And wow, some really good insights there from someone who's it's amazing how we always need sometimes a tragedy or unfortunate event to get us into some kind of epiphany. But anyway, that's it from me. I'm out of here. Thanks very much to the Cave Hub, who are wonderful sponsors of the show at 18 Bond Street in Abbotsford. For those of you who know, to get some pre-production done, it's a great live venue. They are great for rehearsal space. They got the PA, they got the stage, the lighting rig, the whole bit. It's a licensed venue. So go check them out. And also thanks to George Soteropoulos and the guys at Omega MMA and Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Thank you very much, fellas, for your support of the podcast as well. Okay, and they're in Down Street, Collingwood. Okay, I'm out of here. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening. I love you, fuckers.
Thanks. Bye.
As always say, be nice to each other, but more importantly, be nice to yourselves. Okay, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.